we have come to the final book of the Odyssey, The Trunk of the Olive Tree. Now, that might seem like a weird title, but we'll go back to that in a second. So, this isn't actually the final book, but there's some controversy about the last two books, and I'll let you know more about that later. But we're going to finish the last book we're going to read, The Trunk of the Olive Tree. Is that ringing a bell? Do we remember anything? Let's go back to page 30 of the virtual text. Way back, several weeks ago, when we started reading this and we got Odysseus' backstory and his origin story, he married Penelope. They live on the island of Ithaca. Where can a man find greater joy than in his own home with his own family? They build their house around an ancient olive tree. It shelters and protects them. Its trunk supports their marriage bed. So they build this palace, the same palace that Odysseus just killed over 100 men in, but in their bedroom, there is a tree growing out of the ground, an ancient tree. And this tree forms part of their bed. This is important. And this is what is referred to in the title, the Great Olive Tree, the trunk of the olive tree. So let's see how the story wraps up. Great-hearted Odysseus, home at last, was being bathed now by Eurynome, another servant, and rubbed with golden oil and clothed again in a fresh tunic and a cloak. Remember, he just killed like 100 men. He needs to be bathed. He needs new clothes. Athena lent him beauty, head to foot. She made him taller and massive too, with crisping hair and curls like petals of wild hyacinth, but all red golden. Think of gold infused on silver by a craftsman whose fine art has Festus taught him, or Athena, one whose work moves to delight. Just so she lavished beauty over Odysseus' head and shoulders. He then sat in the same chair by the pillar, facing his silent wife, and said. So Athena makes him bigger, more beautiful, this gorgeous red golden hair. He's just this vision of perfection. Athena, it's like an artist, a sculptor, crafting him into this masterpiece. And now he's looking at his wife, and he says, Strange woman, the immortals of Olympus made you harder than any. Who else in the world would keep aloof as you do from her husband if he returned to her from years of trouble, cast on his own land in the 20th year? Nurse, make up a bed for me to sleep on. Her heart is iron in her breast. So Odysseus is upset that Penelope has not welcomed him with open arms. I get it. He's been through a lot. But think of, for a moment, of Penelope. She's been through a lot too. All this craziness has happened. Just like with Telemachus, Odysseus transforming him, Athena transforming Odysseus, that must be confusing to her too. So she's just like not immediately throwing herself at him. It could be a test. She's still trying to figure things out. But he tells the nurse, or like kind of the head servant, to make him a bed in the hall. Make him a bed for him to sleep on. They're not going to sleep in the bed together. Penelope spoke to Odysseus now. She said, Strange man, if man you are. Once again, like Telemachus, this whole transformation thing freaks him out. This is no pride on my part, nor scorn for you. Not even wonder merely. I know so well how he appeared boarding the ship for Troy. But all the same. So she's like, I know you look like Odysseus. I remember in my heart, but there's something that's making her hold back. Make up his bed for him, Eurycleia. Place it outside the bedchamber my lord built with his own hands. Pile the big bed with fleeces, rugs, and sheets of purest linen. So what she says is, don't just make up a bed, make up his bed. Take his bed, put it outside the bedchamber. So move Odysseus' bed outside of the bedroom, and he can sleep in his own bed. Just take it outside the bedroom. With this, she tried him to the breaking point, and he turned on her in a flash, raging. Woman, by heaven, you've stung me now. Who dared to move my bed? No builder had the skill for that. Unless a god came down to turn the trick, no mortal in his best days could budget with a crowbar. There is our pact and our pledge, our secret sign, built into that bed, my handiwork, and no one else's. An old trunk of olive grew like a pillar on the building plot, and I laid out our bedroom round that tree, lined up the stone walls, built the walls and roof, gave it a doorway and smooth-fitting doors. Then I lopped off the silvery leaves and branches, hewed and shaped that stump from the roots up into a bedpost, drilled it, let it serve as a model for the rest. I planed them all and laid them with silver, gold, and ivory, and stretched a bed between, a pliant web of ox-hide thongs dyed crimson. There's our sign. I know no more. Could someone else's hand have sawn that trunk and dragged the frame away? So it's kind of the most emotion Odysseus has showed, and it's because he thinks something has happened to his bed. Their secret. As she heard it told, her knees grew tremulous and weak. Her heart failed her. With eyes brimming tears, she ran to him, throwing her arms around his neck and kissed him, murmuring, "Do not rage at me, Odysseus. No one ever matched your caution. Think what difficulty the gods gave. They denied us life together in our prime and flowering years, kept us from crossing into age together. Forgive me. Don't be angry. I could not welcome you with love on sight. I armed myself long ago against the frauds of men, impostors who might come, and all those many whose underhanded ways bring evil on. Helen of Argos, daughter of Zeus and Leda, would she have joined the stranger, lain with him, if she had known her destiny?" So this is another reference or callback to the sort of origin story that they're talking about Helen, who became known as Helen of Troy. Helen, whose father was Zeus and her mother was the princess. Zeus came to her as a swan. But she's saying, like, would Helen have gone away with Paris if she had known what was going to happen? So Penelope's like, I have to be careful. There's all sorts of tricks and things. We can't trust the gods. Known the Achaeans in arms would bring her back to her own country. So she was taken back from Troy. Surely a goddess moved her to adultery, her blood unchilled by war and evil coming. The years, the desolation, ours too. So she's saying, like, this mistake Helen made was so grave, a goddess, the gods must have been involved. But here and now, what sign could be so clear as this of our own bed? No other man has ever laid eyes on it. Only my own slave, Actorus, that my father sent with me as a gift. She kept our door. You make my stiff heart know that I am yours. So Penelope is declaring her loyalty. No other man has seen this bed. She has remained loyal and faithful. Odysseus can't quite say the same, but now they are reunited. Their love has rekindled. Now from his breast into his eyes the ache of longing mounted, and he wept at last, his dear wife, clear and faithful, in his arms, longed for, as the sun-warmed earth is longed for by a swimmer, spent in rough water where his ship went down, under Poseidon's blows, gale winds, and tons of sea. So this is a analogy, specifically an epic simile, comparing Odysseus's longing for his wife to a swimmer who has been lost at sea. His boat is gone and he is swimming for shore. So that man swimming for shore desires land as much as Odysseus desires Penelope. Or Odysseus desires Penelope as much as a drowning, swimming man desires land. Few men can keep alive through a big surf to crawl, clotted with brine, seawater, saltwater, on kindly beaches enjoy knowing the abyss behind. And so she too rejoiced, her hand upon her husband, her white arms round him pressed as though. So now they embrace, they're reunited, as if it is forever. They're happy, they're in love. Odysseus has achieved his goal after these 20 years away from home. Odysseus and Penelope tell each other about all that happened to them while Odysseus was away. So he comes clean, I guess. But remember, in his heart, he never gave consent, so it's not his fault they were goddesses. Then Odysseus visits his father Laertes to give them the good news of his safe return. So Odysseus' father is still alive through all this. His mother passed. He saw her in the underworld. So he goes and says, like, hey, Dad, I'm back. Meanwhile, the townspeople, angry about the deaths of the young suitors, gather to fight Odysseus. In the end, Athena steps in and makes peace among them all. So this little ending is the part I find most interesting. And yes, there's more to it. I might share it with you. We'll see. But, the way the textbooks edit the story, and this goes back to our quote, if you want a happy ending, it depends on where you end the story. If we end it with Odysseus and Penelope reunited and in love, happy ending. If we remember that Odysseus just killed over 100 men who lived in his town, in his country thing, city state, and their families are going to be kind of mad that they're dead, the ending's not that happy. It just kind of depends on your perspective. So, the story is ended. Odysseus is reunited with his family. He has happiness. He achieved his goal. But is he a hero? That's what we're going to consider now that we're done. How do we feel about Odysseus? I don't know how I feel. It's complicated.